Dear friends, welcome to another episode of The Informant. Today we're diving into a bold statement from Japan's new Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba, who claims that the only way for democratic nations in the Asia-Pacific and Oceania to counter China's aggressive expansion is by forming an Asian NATO. But before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Shigeru Ishiba, the new Prime Minister of Japan, is widely recognized for his expertise in defense and security. Throughout his extensive political career, he has held prominent positions in the Japanese government, including that of Minister of Defense, and has served as Secretary General of the Liberal Democratic Party, LDP. Ishiba has been a key figure in national security debates, particularly advocating for a potential revision of Japan's pacifist constitution. He supports a more assertive defense policy, including the reform of Article 9 of the Constitution, which severely limits the country's military capabilities. A proponent of greater self-reliance in defense matters, Ishiba strongly advocates for bolstering Japan's self-defense forces and expanding the country's military role, especially in response to growing threats from North Korea and China. While he values Japan's strategic alliance with the United States, he believes the country should strive for more independence in its defense capabilities. If his leadership solidifies these ideas, it is expected that his administration will bring substantial changes to Japan's defense policies. Shigeru Ishiba's recent advocacy for an Asian NATO has already stirred significant controversy as he prepares for his diplomatic debut at the ASEAN summits in Vientiane, Laos. Critics, especially in Indonesia's The Jakarta Post, argue that ASEAN needs Japan as an economic partner, not a military ally. The editorial warned that the introduction of a military alliance, similar to NATO, could escalate tensions and undermine the region's peace and development. Ishiba, however, stands firm, insisting that such an alliance is crucial to deterring China. He argues that the absence of collective defense mechanisms only increases the likelihood of war. Yet, opponents of this view suggest that NATO in Europe has, at times, fostered instability rather than protection, and fear that an Asian NATO might push countries into opposing blocs, clashing with the region's goals for economic cooperation. Japan has gradually relaxed its military restrictions over the years, and Ishiba's proposal is seen as an attempt to further extend its military influence, much to the concern of neighboring countries. Many in the region consider the idea of an Asian NATO both impractical and unwanted. There's hope that the Prime Minister will focus on cooperation and stability at the ASEAN summits, rather than promoting division. After World War II in Europe, it became evident to Western allies, especially the United States and the United Kingdom, that Stalin wasn't honoring the agreements made during the war, particularly regarding the liberation of Eastern Europe and the promise of free elections. Instead, Stalin imposed Soviet control over nations like Bulgaria, Romania, and Poland, allowing only Moscow-approved leaders to rise to power. This Soviet dominance led to the infamous Iron Curtain descending across Eastern Europe, isolating the region and marking the beginning of the Cold War in 1947. At that time, European nations realized that Stalin intended to push further into Europe, and the Soviet Union had more than enough military might to do so. By the late 1940s, the Soviets had more tanks, planes, artillery, and soldiers than all the European nations combined. If Stalin had decided to invade, Europe would have fallen easily. The only way to safeguard European nations was through a military alliance that included the United States, which led to NATO's creation in 1949. Originally consisting of 10 European countries, along with the US and Canada, NATO was formed to defend against an adversary who could, one-on-one, overwhelm any of them. This is the very logic behind military alliances, combining individually weaker forces into a single, stronger defense. Shigeru Ishiba's call for an Asian NATO mirrors this thinking, as he argues it's the only way to counter China's growing expansionism and aggressive posture in the region. Ishiba also referenced North Korea's increasing belligerence, especially following its strategic partnership with Vladimir Putin in support of the invasion of Ukraine. The current situation in the Asia-Pacific is eerily similar to Europe in the late 1940s. Just as Stalin had the military capability to overrun each European country individually, China today has the power to do the same across the Asia-Pacific and Oceania. The only way Stalin was stopped was through a military alliance that included the US, and Japan believes the same strategy is necessary to check China's ambitions. In his remarks, Ishiba warned that the absence of a collective defense system in Asia could spark not just one, but multiple conflicts involving China, North Korea, and potentially Russia. He pointed out that while the US already has military alliances with several countries in the region, including Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, these alliances must be unified and expanded to include strategic partners like Australia and India to form a united front capable of halting China's expansionist ambitions in the South China Sea and other parts of the Indo-Pacific. Ishiba believes that the Quad, a security dialogue group involving Australia, India, Japan, and the United States, could serve as a foundation for this new alliance. The Quad has already been conducting regular military exercises in the Indo-Pacific, and Ishiba envisions that the experience gained from these drills could evolve into a full-fledged military alliance that includes not only these four nations, but also the Philippines and South Korea. He also advocates for an upgrade in the Mutual Defense Pact between Japan and the US, aiming to elevate it to the same level as the US-UK military alliance. According to Ishiba, such an upgrade would allow Japan to station troops at US military bases in the region, particularly on the island of Guam, enhancing troop mobility and increasing security cooperation. Moreover, Ishiba is pushing for the US to share its nuclear arsenal with Japan, similar to the arrangement the US has with Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, and Turkey, where American nuclear weapons are stored and could be used by these countries under direct coordination with the Pentagon. Failing that, Ishiba has hinted that Japan may need to develop its own nuclear weapons, particularly in light of the growing nuclear threats from North Korea and China. If you value independent journalism and want to support our work, consider buying us a coffee through the QR code on the screen. Your contribution is essential for us to continue bringing quality analysis and information. Stay tuned for more updates, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the latest analyses and insights on the world's most urgent geopolitical issues.